Today, we're looking at a green ink by pilot Iroshizuku Chiku rin. As always, there's timestamps down below so you can skip around, but if you've got the time, it would help me out if you check out the entire video. And if you didn't know it, I'm an ink guy. If you're interested in green inks, there will be a link to that playlist here. There are 3 papers used to try and get some sort of standardization on some of the writing samples: Clairfontain, Tomoe River, and Rhodia. Let's take a look at the first of those, 90 GSM Clairfontaine. We get no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen. Yes, it offers shading. I want to say I had to prime the pen right there. I expect a much darker tone, but this is what we're getting. It's not looking especially good. Very, very light. I was not happy with it here. The extra fine is quite a bit darker than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, a very nice shading all the way throughout it. It is not needed to be pointed out. Not bad at all. 6 seconds to dry. Medium is about the same tone as the extra fine, with no feather spread, halo sheen, and a very nice shading. 9 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show a ton of color variation, and we do get it in the writing. But the smear says if you smeared this while you were writing, that's it, it's over. You can't recover it. To make sure there's a range of experience with this ink, all the writing samples are done with this Jinhao 159 with a 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a medium, and a Jinhao X750 with an extra fine. Then a cross Bailey with a medium nib is inked up and used for a day, and then used to take the notes for this video. Now let's take a look at the second standard paper, 52 GSM Tomoe River. There's no bleeding, no ghosting. Turn over! Oh. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen. It does offer some decent shading throughout. No need to really point it out. It's doing a good job all on its own. The extra fine is a little bit lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen. It does offer some shading, just not as standout. Like, look at brown, it's a little bit darker, but it's just so light in so much of the writing that I'm not happy with this ink on this paper. It took 9 seconds to dry. Now the medium is a slight bit darker than the extra fine, a little bit lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, a very nice shading throughout. Look at how quick, starts darker, gets lighter, gets darker again. Same thing for brown, dark to light to dark. 15 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby for both show us good color variation, and we got that. The smear says, good luck, buddy. You smeared while you're writing, and it is lost. I agree with Vita that there's a lot to learn by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. A line of ink is put down and immediately put in the water for 10 to 15 seconds. And we see a very light blue pushing its way up and a very bright yellow at the top. And that is where we get this particular green. That old yellow and blue makes green. Now the one on the right was let dry for 10 minutes before it was dunked in the water. And the interesting thing is that blue line on the bottom is really starting to get into the paper there, and a little bit of it is pushing up, but none of the yellow stayed. It does mean that we could think that some of that blue is going to be a holdout color. Up next is the third writing sample done on 80 GSM Rhodia dot pad. We get no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen. It offers a very nice shading throughout. The extra fine is a tad lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen. It does offer some decent shading, not tons, much less than I would prefer. But that's just this particular pen. 6 seconds to dry. The medium is about the same tone as the extra fine, with no feather spread, halo sheen. The shading shows up much better. Look at the difference in the on medium and the on extra fine. Quite a bit of difference here in the amount of shading. Lazy, nothing, no shading. But brown goes from dark to light to dark. Fox goes from medium to light to dark. 9 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us good color variation. And it's possible, it's just not a ton of it in the extra fine. The medium's doing much better. Smear test says if you smear while you're writing, it's lost. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more important, how hard it may be to clean from your pen. Now, the smear is allowed to dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, it actually handles itself fairly well. It isn't lightening up at all. It's not smearing all over the place the way I really did expect it. I expected the yellow to run away, but maybe it did, and the yellow highlighter kind of replaced it. Looking at the water, that's what makes me think that that might have happened. We might have just replaced the yellow. The water completely removed the yellow aspect of this ink and leaving all of that blue that we saw in the resistance. It's got a blue behind. That's right, a blue behind. Now, pen flush is removing quite a bit more of that blue. It's a much lighter blue that's being left there, but it's still fighting against being removed from the paper. That's a paper, not a pen. It really only takes water for me to get this out of my pen. The 1/3 bleach solution, which you're not going to have a use for at all, it did completely obliterate it. The next writing samples are done on different paper in order to just really change things up a bit. This one is TWSBI notebook paper. We get no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, not a ton of shading, although it does show a couple darker spots. The extra fine is a little bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen. It offers a lot more shading than the stub did. Look at the being much lighter than the word quick, where quick starts medium, gets very light, goes to a darker tone again, and brown starts dark and works its way light to dark again. Nice, and 3 seconds to dry. That's crazy fast. Medium is the same tone as the extra fine, with no feather spread, halo sheen, and some very nice shading, the same as the extra fine. The scrubby for both show us a good color variation, and we are getting it in the writing. Once again, that smear test says you're on your own. Keep your hand away from this, because if you smear it, it's lost. For the inks tested, the average viscosity, or flow, was 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Iroshizuku's Chiku rin has a viscosity of 1.19, making this just a bit wetter than normal. If you're interested in how the viscosity tests are done and how the bell curve is constructed, then there's going to be a link to that video here. The next writing sample is done on monokaki paper. I just like saying that, monokaki. I'm sure I'm butchering it. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and it does offer some decent shading throughout, from a nice mid-tone to lighter dark tone. Like when you look at the Chiku, middle tone there, mid-tone, to a lighter dark tone on the K. The extra fine is a little bit lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen. It does have the opportunity to do much better shading. It's just the tone paper is really kind of hiding it. You see quick is a little darker to a little lighter in the middle, much darker on the K. Brown starts dark and works its way light. 3 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the extra fine, with no feather spread, halo sheen, the same kind of good shading that we're getting in the extra fine, a very nice shading. Look at the word quick, dark to light to dark, brown, dark to light, fox, mid to light to dark, 4 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show us a good color variation, and we are getting it in the writing, and still, if you smear it, you're stuck. To find the average dry times, the writing samples done on Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper are averaged. They're then normalized and put onto a bell curve. For the inks tested, there is an average dry time of 17 seconds, with a realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Iroshizuku's Chiku rin has an average dry time of 9 seconds, making this a very fast drying ink. The last writing sample is done on Fabriano Echo Qua, because who doesn't like saying that name? Echo Qua. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, a very nice shading. Check that out. The extra fine is a tad bit lighter than the stub. With no feather spread, halo sheen, it does offer spots of shading. Take a look at Fox. Starts mid-tone, gets light, gets dark. Brown starts mid-tone, works its way light to mid-tone to light again. Quick goes darker to lighter to darker. You can read this without too much trouble. 3 seconds to dry. Medium, same tone as the extra fine, with no feather spread, halo sheen, very nice shading. Same shading that we're getting with the extra fine, 5 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show us good color variation because we get it. The smear test, still no luck. Instead of finding a green ink that looks like Iroshizuku Chiku rin, I would prefer to find an ink that complements that green on the page. I went with a nice yellow. Yeah, yellow. Nobody likes yellows. I like yellows. I chose Akkerman Dutch Masters number 3. And in case you think I'm a moron for choosing yellow, there's a link to all of the different playlists sorted by color down in the description. So what do I think of Iroshizuku's Chiku rin? What you're seeing here is writing much darker on this cream life paper than it did in the writing samples. I definitely prefer it here more than in a writing sample. It does shade great, tons in fact. But I have frequently found that the tone too light to comfortably use for a whole page. I think this is a great complement ink to use on the paper, but wow, this is darker, almost like it's an entirely different ink, making me wonder if maybe this got a little dehydrated in between my first writing samples and getting to reviewing it. So what nib and pen are going to give the best writing experience with this ink? A wet medium pen is going to put it dark enough down on the page and still allow you to get some of that very nice shading that this ink has to offer. I hope you got something out of this video, and be sure to come back tomorrow when we take a look at Lamy Violet.